Hi, it's Emily and this is my August wrap up. So apologies again that I'm filming in the evening, but you know, it's the only time I've had the chance to film today, and yeah, I'm working tomorrow, and so you know, this is the only opportunity. So I'm just gonna jump in and go very quickly through the books I read in August. I think I read 9, let me just double check. So yeah, I read 9 books. Pretty happy with that. That's like kind of my average. I kind of read like 8 to maybe sometimes 12, 8 to 10 ish, so pretty slap bang in my average. So yeah, I'm gonna go through what I read. They're mostly quite highly rated, so it was a good reading month. So the first book that I read was Almost a Bride by Jo Watson. I read this for the Join the Six readathon that I hosted that kind of overlapped into the beginning of August. I gave this 5 stars. It's my favourite, probably my favourite romance ever. Which is saying something because I read quite a bit. It was a reread as well, so I already knew what I was going into, but it just made me love it even more because I was like so excited to get to it, like all the different points. So this follows Annie, who walks in on her boyfriend cheating on her, doing quite kinky stuff, and so she has a bit of a breakdown, and so she then goes on like a holiday to Mauritius. This one's Mauritius, and then she meets this guy called Chris, and they just kind of chat on the beach. They're not, you know, they're not friends or anything, they just meet on the beach, and then lo and behold, Trev, her ex, shows up in the same hotel in Mauritius, and so Annie's like, yeah, I've got a boyfriend, he's called Boyden from Australia, and Chris just happens to be like standing nearby. They weren't there together, but he was just there, and so he's like, yeah, I'm Boyden, in like an Australian accent. And yeah, it was really funny, and then they have like this kind of couples battle throughout, and it's like fake dating, but like it's just really funny, and I look back on it with so much love. Anyway, I shouldn't ramble on too much, but that's probably the book I'm going to talk about the most. That was the first book I read, and probably one of my favourite books that I read that month in August. So next up, I read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This was also, I believe, for Join the Six readathon. I absolutely loved this. I also gave this 5 stars, and I think it's a very important read, and I really do think that everyone should read it. So this follows Star, and she is the only witness to her best friend's shooting. He was unarmed, and he was killed by a white police officer, and she's already in between like 2 worlds, her like school, which is, you know, majority white, and her neighbourhood at home. And so she wants to speak up and fight for what's right, but then she also doesn't want to put herself in an uncomfortable position. It's very, very powerful, and I really recommend that everyone should read this. I absolutely loved it. 5 stars all the way. There's no way it couldn't have been 5 stars. Right, next up I read Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This was also for the Join the Six readathon, and I gave this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. So it's written in verse, so that's the prompt fitted for the readathon, but I really enjoyed it. So it's about these 2 sisters that don't know they have each other, and their father unfortunately dies suddenly in a plane crash, and it kind of brings the 2 families together, and it's about their like connection being formed in their relationship as they find out that actually their dad was living a like double life. So one girl is in the Dominican Republic and one girl is in the USA. I just really enjoyed it. It was a good read, and it didn't take too long because it's written in verse. I'd also like to say a quick thank you to Katie over at Writing Katie Reads. She sent me this copy for my birthday, so I'm glad I actually got to read it so quickly. Moving on. So the next book that I read in August was The Boy Who Lost His Sight. This was once again another reread for me. I think this also counted for Join the Six readathon. At the very last minute I was like, you know what, I can read this in a day, and I basically did. And so this is about a girl called Ellie who moves schools she moves across states and to a new school in Florida, and she meets this guy called Riley at her new school, and Riley seems to be very lonely. He has apparently pushed everyone away because he lost his sight the year before in a car accident. But Ellie wants to make friends with him, and even though he is very resistant at first, she then gets to him and they have a cracking friendship which then turns into more. But yeah, I love this book. I gave this 4.5 stars because for those who saw my Join the Six vlog, you'd like know why I gave it this rating. However, even though this story has a special place in my heart, I've read it 3 times, I always find it hard to read because the author wrote it in English, which is her second language, so the grammar is not that good and it's sometimes hard to understand. but you know, you get through the story, and the actual storyline I just love, so that's that one. The next book that I read in August was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, finally, and I gave it 5 stars. I was actually quite hesitant to read this just because I didn't know if I'd love it as much as everyone else did, and then I was like, the hype's so big, so I must love it, but then yeah. And I went into it and I loved it. I tabbed it all. I was just had such a good time reading it, and I was like messaging Connor throughout with my guesses and theories, and I definitely really want to go straight onto Good Girl Bad Blood very shortly. It reminded me how much I actually love young adult like mysteries, thrillers, and so I bought a couple more. Just after finishing this, I went to Tesco's and bought 2 more young adult thrillers. So that's what I've done. So this is about a girl called Andy. No. So this follows Pip, and Pip's doing her EPQ, which is like an extra sort of qualification above A levels. And so for her project, she decides to look into the murder of Andy Bell, which happened 5 years prior. But the whole town know that Sal Singh did it. However, she then begins to like doubt this and looks further and further into it and gets very into investigating this murder as though she was like investigating it for real. And so it kind of goes from there, and she isn't so sure that Sal did it. But then someone out there is trying to stop Pip from finding out the truth. So yeah, I just loved it. It had so many... I don't even know how to express how much I love this, but just looking at the tabs that I wrote, I just saw one of the tabs, the actual annotation that I wrote made me laugh. But yeah, so that's this one, I guess. I cannot wait to read Good Girl Bad Blood. So next up, I read Loveless by Alice Oseman. I got the ebook from NetGalley, but I got it after it was published. So I read that and I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, it was definitely worth the hype, and it's definitely my favourite Alice Oseman book so far. It was really nice to read a book set at university because I don't have that many, and as a university student myself, it was good to kind of relate to her going through freshers and being like, oh yeah, that happened to me, and I had those experiences, so that was quite nice. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's about a girl called Georgia who goes to university and she hasn't been kissed, she's never had a boyfriend, but she loves the idea of falling in love and she loves the idea of romance. However, every time, you know, a guy comes up to her, she's grossed out. So she starts questioning like her sexuality, and when the word asexual is thrown into the equation, it kind of confuses her even more. And yeah, it just goes from there and follows her through, like, I guess, university. So yeah, that I really did enjoy. It was a good read, I have to say. So next up, I finally finished Topics About Which I Know Nothing by Patrick Ness. This I started on June the 2nd and I finished it August 24th, so it took me a while to read. It's a short story collection, and basically when I got to the end of one of the stories, I put it down and picked up another book for like a readathon and never like continued it, and so I finally did. It's a lovely floppy paperback, and yeah, I really did enjoy some of the stories. Some of the stories I was a bit like, meh. So I think this is maybe one of my least favourite Patrick Ness books out there. Shocker, me not giving at least 4 stars to a Patrick Ness book. Most of the stories I did really enjoy. There was one I actually ended up skipping over because I didn't want to read it, frankly. It didn't interest me in the first paragraph, which was the 7th International Military War Games Dance Committee Quadrennial Competition and Jamboree. It's a long title. Some of the ones I did like is 2,115 Opportunities, Implied Violence, and then what was the one, The Way All Trends Do, which is about the green grab. So yeah, I did enjoy some of the stories quite a lot, and then others were like, so I gave it 3 stars overall. Apologies if it's getting dark, it is evening. Okay, so the next book that I read was a graphic novel. It was Persepolis by Marjan Satrapi, and I gave that 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I really loved the message it put out, and I really loved the art style as well. So it kind of follows the author's actual story, I believe. And so it follows the author's childhood living in Iran back in, I think it was the 80s, late 70s, 80s, and her childhood and going through adulthood and how life is there and what her experience was growing up in Iran, and then also when she was an adult. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, like I said, and yeah, it was just really powerful, I think, and it was definitely very educational, so I do recommend reading it. I do think it's very important to know about different cultures, so that was very good. And finally, the last book that I read in August was The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This was for my book club. this in August. That was our book club pick. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it actually. I found myself, once I picked it up, I just couldn't put it down, and it took me only a couple of days to read. I did listen to the audiobook as well, which definitely helped, because initially, because there's so many characters, I think you get 4 or 5 perspectives. At first I was a bit like, oh, who's Miranda, who's Katie? But the audiobook, like the voices, the different narrators helped with that, but it didn't take long. It took me about 50 pages to actually know who was who. Because I was worried that was going to be, because it says on the back, the beautiful one, the golden couple, the volatile one, the new parents, the quiet one, city boy, the outsiders. And I was worried that like I was going to get confused between the characters, but actually it was done so well and I didn't actually get confused after like 40-ish pages. So this is about a big group of friends, and they meet up I think every New Year's Eve from different walks of life. They come back on New Year's Eve to celebrate together, and they go to Scotland this year to stay in like a lodge. And so when they get to this lodge, it snows. This is in Scotland, and it snows, so they're kind of trapped there. They're going to stay there anyway, but they can't escape basically. At the beginning you kind of see into the, you don't see into the future, but you get snippets of like present day, and then you go 3 days later, 3 days earlier, and then you kind of see the build up to this event that you kind of hinted at the beginning. So basically they found a body at the beginning. You don't know who the body is for quite a bit, and so you don't even know then where to start with guessing who did it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I just loved hearing about the Scottish accents in the audiobook. That did make the experience more enjoyable, I must say. So that's it for my August wrap up for 2020. I'm quite happy with the books I read, and like I said, they're all quite highly rated. So that is always fabulous. So yeah, that's it from me today. I hope to see you soon with a new video. Bye!